Hi, today we're going to take a look at Ultraverse Origins number 1. Ultraverse was a imprint, well, it was from Malibu Comics. It was a whole universe of characters. A lot of these universes popped up in the 90s. So when Image formed, uh, you know, um, Malibu got into the act with Ultra Force. Valiant got into the act. Dark Horse had their own universe, which didn't make sense because they had more popular titles outside the universe, like Hellboy. Um, and and Malibu created this whole universe of characters in about 1993 or so. I think it launched. By 1995, Marvel bought Malibu Comics, canceled everything, and relaunched some of the more popular titles, and that limped along till about 1997. In its short period of time, Ultraverse burned very, very brightly in the 90s because comics were still very, very popular. And Ultraverse had its own show called Ultra Force, based on their sort of team book, which is like their Justice League, Avengers type squad here. And that cartoon had a Galoob toy line. Lots of characters here were represented in those toys. Nightman had a live action TV series. That's pretty big. That lasted 2 seasons, 44 episodes. Um, Hardcase had a 5 minute special, like a live action special that was a preview for the Ultraverse itself. And Firearm had a 35-minute special. Those were put out on VHS tapes. And that was a live action thing as well. So there's a lot of push behind it, and and in pop culture, there's a lot of hoopla around this. And nowadays, according to Joe Quesada, even though Marvel owns Malibu Comics, they can't do anything with the Ultraverse characters because of the terrible way the deal was made when they got them. That's a big shame because I mean you'll probably never see these characters again, but they were very big in pop culture for a little bit. So this was a comic designed for people to jump in, partway through the Ultraverse. They already had about 8 issues under their belt for stuff that just came out. Stuff that launched in the beginning of Ultraverse. Uh, and this was a dollar in the States, $1.25 in Canada, $1.35 with tax. And it was a cheap issue, so I picked it up just go through. I thought it was a great idea. It's 2 page spreads of each comic, just showing you what they're about. If you'd like to try it, and then there's like checklists at the end, like, okay, now that you've seen all this, what do you want to buy? I thought that was fantastic. And in an age when most comics were $3, $4, and $5, this was a neat idea, I thought. So this is a fold gate cover of a whole bunch of Ultraverse characters. Let's try and name them here. So it's Prime. I liked Prime. It was sort of a riff on Captain Marvel, Shazam. It's a kid with ectoplasmic armor that or something like that that forms Prime, who's an adult looking guy. There's Nightman, has his own series, as I said. Solitaire, one of many, many Punisher riffs in the Ultraverse. I hate to cheapen these characters by saying they're just riffs on Punisher, but that's what was inspiring all these vigilante tough guy types. Um, Sludge, which is a slime monster, he was cool. Electrocute, ridiculous name. She was in one of the many, many teams. A lot of the teams in Ultraverse were basically X-Men riffs, in my opinion. That is Firearm, I'm pretty sure. Hardcase, who's sort of like a Superman character, we'll get to him. Wrath, Mantra, we'll get to Mantra. Very unique. Rune, once again, very unique and heavily pushed by Malibu Comics. He was in backup tales. They're like commercials, like all over the comics leading up to issue 1. Prototype, an Iron Man riff, uh, and other people. I don't know where these guys belong or what teams they're from. I can't remember. And here we have a Rune commercial, and these were all over the place. And here is a T2 commercial, very 90s. This is 1994, before Marvel took over. But here, this is for the Game Gear, Genesis, and the Super Nintendo. And I like this. There's a little table of contents here that directs you to all the different two-page like informational like spreads showing you about each comic and everything. So this is Prototype, and Prototype basically they had a dude in the Prototype armor that didn't work out, so they got this kid. Can't remember his name. I think Jimmy Ruiz. There you go. And he works out nicely. I didn't find this very compelling. I thought the better Iron Man riff was Valiant's Exo Manowar. I thought that was cool with the Visigoth from like 480 that becomes this super powerful dude in armor. I thought that was awesome. This was okay. I have a few issues, but I wasn't really into it. This is Nightman. There's some sort of accident that happens with a trolley car that all the people here become another team called the Strangers. But some of the glass from that, like hits this dude. His ability to sleep is shot, but he can detect people's dark thoughts, and he becomes Nightman. I didn't really buy a lot of issues of this. I will say that the live action show it was loosely based on this. Powers were different, but the costume, I remember being impressed that the costume was the costume from the comics. The only thing about the live action costume is that it didn't have this symbol on the chest, but everything else was pretty much Nightman. It was pretty cool. This is something I never read called The Solution. I don't quite understand what's going on here. It's like this woman has it out for the triads and then gets enhancements where she gets it says wetware enhancements to the brain, and she can control computers, I guess, and then she recruits a team of guys, and then they're the Solution, I guess. I never I never read any of these. I think they're flooding the market at this point, but this is Shadow Mage, Outrage, Tech, I guess is her, and Dropkick, which sounds like a very 80s G.I. Joe name. This is a two-page spread of just a file card of Warstryke, who was basically a Rob Liefeld inspired looking design with the I mean, he didn't design this, but it's like something Rob Liefeld would do with the big shoulder pads and like the big guns and everything. Yeah, I didn't really. I guess maybe that's Warstrike and not a Firearm. I don't know. They're all their vigilantes with big guns characters all like bled into each other for me. This is Prime. I love Prime. I have a lot of issues of Prime. Basically, he was experimented on, and before birth, I guess, is like an experiment to try and create this slimy plasmic armor, and it doesn't come to fruition until he hits puberty, and then he becomes Prime. He becomes enveloped in this goo and forms Prime. It's sort of a metaphor for puberty, I guess. I don't know. And I like this one in that they show one of the adventures of Prime, just so like, would you like to read this kind of thing? And there's a demon that takes on the form of like a comic character that the kid likes and tries to kill him, and then he beats him up. And the girl he has a crush on is disgusted that Prime is turning into goo and stuff. She doesn't know that the kid from her class is Prime. I liked Prime a lot. I thought it was compelling stuff. And this is an ad for the Yellow Pages. Back in the day, Yellow Pages was something people used to look for commercial sort of like ads and everything, like for like industrial stuff, rather than um, addresses and houses in residential. And there's a lot of ads for comic books. I'll try and poke around and see if I can find an old Yellow Pages. I don't get them anymore, of course, because of the internet. But Yellow Pages was the place to look for, like, it's a big, thick book, and look for, if you wanted a plumber, or if you wanted whatever, like pizza or something like that, or if you wanted comics. um, and I remember a lot of great looking logos and designs and cool advertising for comic books in the Yellow Pages. It's now a part of history. Um, and here's an ad for a comic shop where you can pick out what you want to subscribe to and mail off with your money. This is Hardcase. So Hardcase gets infused with superpowers. And they're kind of vague on how that happens, and then he forms a team called the Squad with other people with powers. A robot attacks them, kills almost everybody except for Hardcase, injures the lady here, and he's so traumatized by it, Hardcase just becomes an actor, using his powers as special effects in movies. But he wants to do good still, so he becomes a superhero again, and then that's the origin of Hardcase. Now, this origin was in the Ultra Force cartoon, and the Ultra Force cartoon had the deaths of these characters in it as well. This character, I don't know if it's the same in the comic, but it was called NME, enemy, but they used the letters to form enemy, the word, and that garnered a lot of press and a lot of controversy at the time, because you never really had characters die in cartoons up until that point. Now it's sort of commonplace, but back then it was like, wow, do they dare do this? I found the Ultra Force cartoon very, very accurate, maybe to a fault, but it was pretty cool for something that was based on a comic book universe that went defunct, years later. Here's Rune. I have a few issues of this. Basically, Rune is a centuries and centuries and centuries old intergalactic tyrant that took over planets and plunged them into chaos and all that stuff, and ruled with an iron fist. And there was a 500-year war where they finally dethroned him and drove him out. And he fled to like a backwater planet, Earth, of course, to hide out from these people. And while there, he's weakened a bit by radiation from a nuclear blast, and then basically he's like a cosmic vampire man. It was a very interesting comic. I wouldn't say it would have lasted, but they really pushed the character. Like, he was in the Ultra Force cartoon. It was interesting stuff. I know that the folks at Malibu were like really behind it, but I don't remember it being very popular. And this is Wrath, another dude with big guns. This is so they call him U-231, but he's the star of Sludge. Sludge was an interesting comic about this slime monster, and no one knew what it was about and everything. Like, was he good? Was he bad? It was really cool, and he looked cool too. I have a few issues of this. And this is Solitaire. And here you have people saying, I don't know what he's about, and like, some people like him, some people hate him. This crime boss is like, we're gonna get that guy, but then Solitaire reveals like that's his dad. So that's supposed to compel you to buy the comic. Like, are you interested in this family dynamic? Tune in for Solitaire. I never really bought any Solitaire comics. There's a lot of these vigilante types in the 90s, and you had to pick and choose because there's so many. Like, who are you going to invest your money in, right? The Strangers, they were on that trolley that we talked about with Nightman. So here's Lady Killer, Spectral. I love these names. Zip Zap. Electrocute, that's her, so there she's part of the Strangers. Adam Bob, that might be the best name. Grenade, and Uriel. So yeah, there they are, the Strangers. On the Run, blah blah blah, X-Men type of riff. Firearm, so this is Firearm. So yes, I apologize. That's not Firearm, that's Wrath. And I don't know who that... No, that's Wrath. And that's the other dude that we saw earlier. Look, these guys with big guns and shoulder pads, there's so many of them, I get mixed up. Firearm, this is Firearm. Basically a Punisher type of guy with guns. That's all I gotta say about that. Mantra is weirdly interesting, so let me try and explain this. Good magician, bad magician, centuries old, able to reincarnate themselves. They have knights fighting for either side. They're able to reincarnate those knights into people, so when they reincarnate, the magicians reincarnate into people that have the potential for mysticism. And when they reincarnate the knights for them, they reincarnate them into people that have potential for battle and stuff. So, bad magician defeats good magician's knights and imprisons good magician. There's one knight in particular that survives on this guy's side. So, good magician like reincarnates the knight into someone who has the potential for mysticism rather than battle. And it happens to be a single mom with these two bratty kids. And so the knight, who was a man, has to now juggle life between taking care of these kids who he doesn't know, and in this body, and also learn the ways of magic that's not really like his thing because he's more of a battler, to defeat bad magician and free good magician. You got all that? I liked Mantra. I thought it was interesting. It was weirdly different. I think that at the time in the early to mid 90s, gender swapping, I mean, I know like Ranma Half was all about that, but gender swapping was still a fairly new concept among North Americans, and that whole business. And I remember one of the more entertaining aspects of Mantra was the letters page where kids would write in saying, "So is Mantra a lesbian?" Like they didn't they're trying to wrap their head around this whole gender bending story. I don't think Mantra ever turned up in the Ultra Force cartoon. It'd just be too much for everyone to explain. But I liked it. I thought it was fun and interesting. I don't think we'll ever see Mantra again, unfortunately. These guys, I think, are the Freex. I have a few issues of this. Once again, it just seemed like a X-Men riff. They're on the run and blah, 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 and they have powers and whatever. This woman's made up of tentacles, and this dude is Clayface, basically, and this dude's a big rock guy, and yeah, no, it's cool. It's okay. She can, like, shoot green whatever. And here is the Ultraverse comics and stuff. So the Breakthrough was like this crossover event. I have issues 1 and 2, but really they bookend all these tie-in comics. You know the drill, right? And here's Hardcase, Mantra, Rune, which was just starting out, Freex, Prototype, Solution. I never bought that. Sludge was cool. Firearm, Nightman, Solitaire, Wrath, Prime, the Strangers. Exiles was an interesting idea. So what they did with Exiles was, let me try and get those comics. So I bought issue 1, issue 2, I bought issue 3, and some characters die here, and I was like, oh, they're playing for keeps, that's cool. I bought issue 4, and all the characters die. Like the entire Exiles team. And Steve Gerber then has a little thing at the end saying, this is the final issue of Exiles. The characters who died in this issue and in Exiles 3 are really dead. forever. You'll never see them again, except perhaps in an occasional flashback. And he goes on to talk about how he wanted to show consequences and blah, blah, blah. I thought it was cool, but also I felt a little cheated because I invested in this comic and I paid money. But yeah, no, I think it's a fun story that like they didn't tell anyone that Exiles was going to be finite. They wanted to show some sort of consequences. It really leads up to the whole breakthrough event, so it makes it look like, oh my gosh, like the stakes are super high, and that was the idea here. But I just thought it was fun that they never told anyone this is a 4-issue miniseries. It's just like, this is a new team, like we have all these other teams. And then they just kill everyone in issue 4. That's cool, you know, like who does that? Upcoming is Warstryke, Masquerade, Ripfire, that's a very 90s name, and Ultraverse Premiere, which I guess is like Marvel Premiere. Here's a Lost Vikings commercial. I didn't have Genesis. I'm assuming it at some point went to Super Nintendo, but I never played this game. It looks cool though. And here's the Super Advantage. I don't know how much of an advantage it gave anybody playing Super Nintendo games. And there you have the Ultraverse Origins #1, showing like a universe that was very interesting and fascinating. And I like the 90s because there's a lot of stuff to try. And these characters were some of them. And I think it's a shame that we don't really get to see these characters now. But you know, this is a fascinating look into a time when comics were white hot and people were trying different and new things. I hope you enjoy.